I find the situation in front of us today unacceptable, and I am disgusted and angry. HHS placed one 16-year-old with a sponsor who claimed to be her cousin. In fact, he was completely unrelated to her and had paid for her to come to the U.S. as a mail-order bride. The minor, who had endured a sexual assault in her home country, was forced to have sex with her sponsor. She appealed to a post-release services provider for help and was ultimately removed by Child Protective Services. In another case, a 17-year-old was released to an unrelated, quote, family friend who reported living with 3 additional unrelated adult men. HHS released this teen to the sponsor without conducting background checks on any of the unrelated adult men with whom he would be living, without conducting a home study of his sponsor's home, and without providing any post-release services. Last June, this minor contacted HHS to let the agency know that his sponsor was actually the son of a labor recruiter who had approached the teen in Guatemala about an opportunity to work in the U.S. Upon being placed by HHS with a sponsor, the minor was forced to work 12 hours a day in conditions that made him sick. Vulnerable and traumatized minors abused by their sponsors are forced to engage in back-breaking labor for little or no pay while being housed in unsanitary and dangerous conditions. This is not just a failure of our moral obligation to protect the most vulnerable. It is a failure of a legal obligation as well. And this is what really drives me crazy. HHS, to this day, is claiming once they put this child with a sponsor in Category 3, they have no more legal responsibility. Are you kidding me? And by the way, DHS kind of says the same thing. Well, that's HHS because they're children. Somebody is going to step up as a result of this hearing and take full and complete responsibility of these minor children that we have in our country. Nothing breaks my heart more than the notion that these parents and their children facing unspeakable problems in their home countries took a risk that every parent in this room can't even imagine taking. I think it's important that all of us today quit thinking about what's on paper and think about these children and how hopelessly lost they are when someone shows up knowing that nothing's going to happen and says, yes, I'll sponsor that child. And then they stick them in a trailer and have them clean chicken coops 12 hours a day, 7 days a week for no money. We can do better in the United States of America. And I know there are not people at HHS or DHS that wanted this outcome. But because no one stepped up and took responsibility, that is the outcome we're dealing with. And we got to get it fixed, and we got to get it fixed now. In 2008, Congress directed several federal agencies, including HHS, and you're a Harvard-educated lawyer, Mr. Greenberg, so I know you've read this law. It says very clearly, quote, these federal agencies, Congress says this in the law, must establish policies and programs to ensure that unaccompanied alien children in the United States are being protected from traffickers. It's black-letter law, Mr. Greenberg. My question for you, have you established that policy or program specifically in response to this mandate from Congress in 2008? Yes or no?
We've established a whole set of policies and practices which are responsive to that mandate from Congress and that are intended to address the protection and the safety of children.
Well, I don't want to disagree with you, but I have to say on the record that you have not established a direct policy or program in relationship to that. You've had drafts for years. How many years have there been drafts going around? You all haven't been there that long, but you have to know, right? There's not been a draft, or there's not ever been a regulation posted for even comment on this subject. Has there, Mr. Greenberg?
Senator McCaskill, I'd hope that you would both recognize the number of changes and improvements we've made in the last year And
You
the
made a
fact
great
that we-
improvement 3 days ago. I'm not sure it would have happened if it wasn't for this hearing, but you did. No matter how you feel about immigration, the bottom line is when a child is admitted into our country, the United States of America should be an example to the world about how we care for those children.